Pleasant good evening to one and all. My name is Colin Campbell, and welcome to another episode of Father Knows Best. This program is brought to you by the Parent Teachers Association of the Anglican High School in collaboration with yours truly, A Few Good Men. Now, today's topic, we will be discussing overcoming social problems, and we'll be looking at issues of inequality, poverty, and other social ills with a view of finding or providing solutions. Now, this topic is indeed important because, as we look to was our 50th anniversary of independence, I'm sure that Grenadians are in high spirits, and it's definitely going to be a celebration to remember for the next 50 years. Now, I have my two guests in the back end. I would just like to bring, first off, I'll bring on, my usual companion. How are you, Monty?
Hi, Colin. Hi, Colin. How's your Sunday going so far?
Well, it's been very quiet, and
Colin.
outside looks colorful,
Yeah, as it should be,
as it should.
I want to say a happy Sunday to everybody and a happy independence. I will advance in happy independence to all our listeners and all to all our Grenadians, whether it's in Grenada or in the diaspora. Um, I'm really looking forward to this. I know people are so much in this festive season. It feels as though it's a mini carnival. But I'm really liking what I'm seeing with regards to the patriotism, and I'm looking
You,
forward to this. I'm looking forward to this. I think this has inspired me. I would say this has been
Eddie,
yeah,
to be honest, well, in my lifetime, I didn't get to experience the time during the revolution. But, based on hearing what transpired and comparing it to what I'm seeing now, I'm actually, this is the first time I've seen Grenadians, that patriotic. I mean, we've been patriotic, but to
yeah,
see it to that level where communities are coming together to clean their communities, to decorate their communities, to paint,
yeah,
and they're doing it, for free. Really, they're not being
yeah,
paid to do that, but they're doing it
yeah,
out of the willingness of their hearts. And I must congratulate everyone for that. So,
yeah.
what are your comments? What's happening on the Carnage?
Well, the carnage right now is like a showpiece with regards to all the lights that's around the carnage. When you drive around the carnage, you feel as though you're driving through a tunnel of lights. So I'm happy to be a resident of the area of the carnage area. We don't have much happening on HEB Street, you know, slash formerly Terry Street with regards to much decoration. But right on the carnage, I say it's a lot going on. A lot of lights. Um,
Okay.
and throughout so far, there have been a lot of events. Well, in more recent time, there have been they had something on Friday called is it everything Grenadian or something
On
everything
Friday.
Grenadian? Yeah, on Friday.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, where they had food, drinks, all local products, soaps, seen flower pots, plants, name it. It was down there.
Wow.
A lot of local entrepreneurs were down there on Friday, and I must say, what I was really impressed about is that we have stepped up our game. It's no longer the days when person was doing something local and they always figured the right packaging was just a plastic bag with a label on it. We're seeing more diverse packaging now and something that is even, I guess, suitable for the international market. So to me, that was pleasing to me. That was one of
Mm.
my biggest takeaways. Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right. So we have our guest in the back end. This is his first time appearing on the program. I would like to welcome Mr. Tyrone Buckmeyer, and he's the director of the Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic, Grenada. So let's bring him onto the platform. Welcome, Mr. Buckmeyer.
Hi, good afternoon, Colin. Afternoon, Eddie, and to all listeners here and in the diaspora. Thank you for having me on the program today. I am the director of Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic, but more than that, much more importantly than that, I'm also a parent
Oh,
of a
yes.
2-year-old daughter at Anglican High School.
Yeah.
So I am very happy to be a part of the program, and I hope I'm not going to be just an occasional guest in my professional capacity, that that I'll be able to, be involved in supporting a number of the activities. I just want to jump on what both of you are saying to congratulate the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique for the tremendous energy and effort that I'm seeing put into the preparations for the celebration of our 50th. It's our golden jubilee, and quite honestly, because we've always been a patriotic people. But I think from October 31st last year, when the 50th anniversary celebrations were officially launched on the Carnage, October 31st, um, you can see that there's been a swelling and, a momentum that has built continually
That's
since
right.
then. And I really look forward to the sort of on the day climax of the celebrations, although it's going to be a year of celebration. So people are really coming out, and the effort and the energy is inspiring. And I'm very happy to be a part, to be alive. I'm slightly older than Grenada, you know, but
That,
I'm happy to be alive. I lived through the revolution, and I can tell you, a lot of
yeah,
what I'm seeing now is reminiscent of those days with the National
yes,
Women's
Wow.
Organization, the
yes,
National
yes.
Youth Organization. I mean, those were days when you saw Grenadians come out, not only in patriotic colors, but just the energy and the excitement of being part of something that was unifying. I'm feeling that energy again. And
Yeah.
behind me is one of the many quite bold decoration
Was
displays that
about to touch on that, eh?
in business places. This one, I'm using it out without their permission, so I need to give kudos to the Grenada corporate. This is in the head office
On
on
Church Street.
on Church Street. I took
Touch
this
Yeah.
Street.
picture on Friday. I did not ask their permission to use it, but I hope they don't mind. So here's a plug for Grenada corporate. But this is the sort of thing that people are going. If you could see this picture in its entirety, there's so many things that I saw in that photo that I've not seen in 20, 30, 40 years. Things that I used as a child that we used commonly back in those days, like posy and, enamel cups and
Yeah, I see the juking
washcloths and
board. I see
chicken
the
bowl
juking board in the
and
back there.
enamel. So people are going out of the way to find things that really are reminiscent of our culture, no longer in use, a lot of them, but very much a part of our history. And I'm really impressed, and I'm glad to be alive in this moment.
Tyrone, that joking board make you remember Polar Bear, right? You remember Polar Bear? Well, you must remember Polar Bear.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I
Yes,
find out they're leaving me
but
out of this
colored, yes,
conversation.
colored
But
Color,
ones
hold on.
that you don't
color.
feel
Let me
left
put,
out.
hold on. Let me put it into perspective though, because
Yes,
mind you,
sir.
I grew up with the posy. I grew up with the enamel cups. Okay, I used to drink my cocoa
Okay.
tea out of that enamel cups. All right. So I'm just
Right,
saying. I know about the
right,
juking
right.
board.
You're not as young as you look, man.
No, 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 no. And a matter of fact, let me just put that plug in. My dad, and I always tell people, and people don't believe me. My father was born in 1924,
Whoa.
and I'm 30.
1924. Wow.
Yes, yes, and I'm in my mid 30s. So
Okay.
yeah, so
A lot of math to be done, but
Yeah,
we leave that.
leave that.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think this is an opportunity, just to reiterate some of the things that Mr. Buckmeyer said. This is definitely, something that I welcome. Seeing Grenadians, we've always, like you said, we've always been patriotic, but there's a swell of our patriotism. I mentioned seeing communities come out, in their droves and painting. Even here at Mount Gay, where I'm residing, on that bridge, we saw community members get out there, paint, clean the area, who brought drinks, who brought food. The parliamentary representative was there as well. So, while this is an opportunity for us to now celebrate, I also think this is an opportunity for us to not only reflect, but to look at the
Come
future and
together.
how we can solve and come together. That's right. But how
Yeah,
can we
yeah.
really solve some of the societal problems? So I'm seeing it bigger than just a celebration. I'm thinking now is a time for strategic planning,
Yeah.
dealing with some of the societal ills. And just to segue into our topic, I believe that this topic is quite pertinent, um, and we're looking at solving some of the societal problems or overcoming some of our social ills in society. So, from your perspective, Mr. Buckmeyer, just to first start off with your on a professional level, you are the director of Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic. What are some of the societal problems that you see happening on a daily basis? And this is a show where we're really trying to reach out to men. So from your perspective, what are some of the issues that we see happening to families, but also are affecting men at the same time as well?
Right. Well, it, kind of jumping into almost the sad end of things. But as we say, as we reflect on 50, we have to look forward with optimism, but planning for that optimism, because it's not going to happen automatically. These problems, many of the social ills that we're grappling with today have been there for a while. They're not going to go away because of good intentions and because we wish them away. We have to practically address them, dissect them, and look at how do we as a community, address them together. We need to be sure that everybody is on board. From where I sit in legal aid and counseling clinic, and not just there in my present moment as a director, but having worked in the social work fraternity now for 36 years, it really is still quite disappointing that we are still seeing a lot of issues that we've been challenging for many, many years continuing to plague our society. So, for example, the breakdown in family relations, where we have a lot of, some people say dysfunctional families. I wouldn't necessarily use that word as a descriptor, but families that have challenges in organizing themselves in a way that the entire family benefits from togetherness, safety, the provision of the material needs, and so on. So family challenges within the family, violence within the family, and violence within the broader society. Unfortunately, we're still grappling with a lot of sexual abuse and violence among in our society, and a lot of it is from adults against children. So that is a big issue that as society we need to grapple with as well. Um, the issues of underemployment and unemployment. A lot of persons who may have completed formal education, but are not employed to the extent or at the level that they would like to be based on the qualifications they have attained. Then persons who are unemployed, you know, that people who are not finding the means, do not have a job to find the means to provide adequately for their family. So there are a lot of issues. One of the big things that ties all of these issues together is this issue of poverty. um, Unfortunately, even in our 50th year of independence, we do have a lot of people living, if not under the poverty line, which is defined in a particular way by the UN and international organizations, then close to it. Families that are not in a position to provide for all the basic needs of the members of the family, and therefore, those that reality leads to also some bigger societal challenges that we need to address together.
Mm. Eddie, you want to come in here? Because I'm sure one of the things I know we discussed was the role of poverty, but then Mr. Buckmeyer had mentioned that poverty,
Yeah,
there's a greater issue besides poverty. So,
yeah, yeah, and I must say I'm happy to have Mr. Buckmeyer here because, Colin, you could testify to this that on previous programs I have always been pushing back on certain narratives that and because we are now addressing, so this is a solution based discussion. I would really like to even zero in on a couple issues, right, which I think even more than poverty, right, accounts for most of some of the social, if not all, most of the social ills that we see today. And this is and I think it's basically the the family, the inability to parent and to parent effectively, right? And the inability to, we have moved away from what we knew as the extended family, right? And I cannot cite specific research, but I know there have been a lot of research that speaks to that of family and the fact that children would do much better in a two-parent household or multi-parent household, right? And I think so much of the things that we see happen today is because of lack of commitment to that serious job that we have called parenting, right? So when we speak to that of, for instance, even poverty in our previous even discussion, as you said, people find the money for what they want, what they deem important, right? So like how people say, no matter what, children, you know, children go mine. There's an old colloquial, children go mine. You understand? And maybe I don't really see it as specific as that children go mine because children have to be nurtured, you know, um, holistically, whether it's socially, whether it's spiritually, all these different tenets of parenting. And I just would like, maybe to zero in on that a little bit more because I think right now we have become dominated by single parents, and I think that in itself might be one of our biggest flaws and one of our biggest, um, problems as we move forward. Or
Mm-hmm.
do we as a country, do we as a people have to maybe find a way? And this is by no means something that I expect is easy. Find a way to step away from the status quo and say, listen to me. We have been trying all these different social programs, so it's trying to fix the family, trying to fix society, but we realize that the evidence show that it's getting exponentially worse. How do we address our family structure? Do we have to go out on a limb and say, okay, we are now going to advocate for creating our own model for what the family should be? Because I am one person that believes that single parent family is one of our ills that we have to find a way to overcome, whether it is male or female, and that could be another discussion. That's another discussion that you might be able to give us some more insight on. But I think that, you know, that is our foundational problem.
Okay. So, Mr. Buckmeyer, just to chime in here, because you're yourself just removing your hat as the director of Legal Aid, but you're also a father as well. So, could you just, respond to that? How can we create dynamic families, or if there is a situation that you would have to have a single parent household, how do you know co-parent effectively?
Right. Okay, so gentlemen, first, before I answer your questions, both of you keep referring to me as Mr. Buckmeyer. So in 1971, when I was born, my mother named me Tyrone. That
All
was my
right.
Mr. Mr. came later. I don't know who added it. So feel
All
free,
right, all right, all right,
to call
Tyrone.
me in the spirit of congeniality, and we're having a
Okay.
conversation. I'm Tyrone.
All right. All right,
Right.
Tyrone.
Uh,
Gentlemen, the first thing we have to acknowledge is parenting is hard, as relationships are hard. So whether it's single parents or the so-called nuclear family with mother, father, and children, everybody together, and so on, parenting is hard because the reality is parenting is a dynamic that involves human beings with their own thoughts, with their own ideas, with their own expectations, with their own, realities. And it is not ever easy to get everybody on the same page. Now, the concept or the phenomenon of the single parent family has always been with us. It's not a new reality. In my own personal case, my father was killed when I was 5 months old. And for many years, my mother single parented us. And there were seven of us. But two things that really supported the reality, and buttressed the single parent mother or father in the parenting responsibilities. One, we had the extended family. So we had auntie and uncle and nene and parent and cousin and granny, other persons who took an active interest in the rearing of the child, so that the mother didn't necessarily feel overwhelmed by this responsibility of having to go it alone. And then we also had another really good phenomenon, that was that it took a village to raise a child. So I can tell you, I live now in the community where I grew up. And in my childhood, in my preteen and teen years, from the time I hit the bottom of the stretch where I live now, I live up a hill, but every single house on that road, left and right, was another family who took a very active interest in my upbringing, and mothers and fathers and other members of that family who sought to guide me. So even if I was being disrespectful, any one of the parents in any of those households could call me out on it, could punish me for it, could guide me as to my behavior. And if I went home and complained to my mother, she wanted to know, then why did Miss whoever do it? And once I
yeah.
explained or Once she got to know that, well, Miss Whoever did it because I was disrespectful or I did something that was wrong, she was okay with it, you know, because the family structure was not necessarily limited to one household. The community took an active part in that. We don't really have that much anymore. And there are some reasons why we don't have that. I mean, let's face it, that even the concept of teenage parenthood is not brand new, but we do have younger and younger persons giving birth, so that we have now a reality in our country where we have parents with children who have children at 13, 14, 15, whose children are having children at 13, 14, 15. So you now have a phenomenon in Grenada where you have grandparents who are as young as 28, 30, 32, 34. Now there are very few 32, 34-year olds who, in addition to having children who are now in their teens and still trying to parent them to the extent that they can, are also going to see themselves taking on the responsibility and the role of grandparents in the traditional sense. Because at 30, 34, whatever, you're still working, you have a long way to go in your working life, you have a lot of responsibilities of your own. You may have that parent who has a that 20 that let's say a 30-year-old parent who has a 15-year-old child who has a child. So that 30-year-old is now a grandparent, but that 30-year-old probably also has a 5-year-old child and an 8-year-old child, you know? So it means that persons are no longer willing or able to give of themselves in terms of a supporting role to their children because they themselves are still bringing up young children. So that's part of the reality. In terms of the community dynamic in relation to parenting, we have become very insular now. A lot of us are in our homes, in front of our television, on our devices. We don't take as active an interest in what's going on outside our homes once we lock the door and go in. Unless there's something bad that's happening, and then we all come out to see, to find out what's going on. And nowadays, to pull out a video camera and make a video to upload. Outside of that, many of us just go in, lock up, and that's it. Our family seems to be our focus because we're inside. But the reality is, even inside, a lot of parents are not doing any active parenting because they're on their devices, they're on the television, they're on the telephone, etc. So, in order for us to begin to address some of the problems that we see manifesting outside of the home, the delinquency, the truancy, the violence, and all of that, we need to now try to get parents in the home to A, take their roles more seriously, and B, get the community to look out for each other. You know, those are two really valuable parenting support mechanisms that we've lost. The extended family, to a large extent, not altogether, but to a large extent, the loss of the extended family and or the decline in influence of the extended family and the decline in influence of the village in the rearing of each other's children, the co-parenting, as you said, of each other's children are problems. So there are a lot of things that we need to try to begin to address. And we need to teach parenting skills because let's face it, gentlemen, you know, you have to get a license to ride a bike, to drive a
Yeah.
car, to do almost everything. You know, the most significant role that any two human beings can come together to play collectively is that of bearing and rearing a child. But you know, there's no licensing mechanism for that. There is no exam to be passed. There is no manual to study. You know, you kind of do it and hope for the best. Unless again you have all those supporting systems around you that allows you to make your errors and learn from them, knowing that you will not be left to fail. You know, so there's a lot of work to be done. The good news is it can be done. It has been done. We just need to continue it and sort of encourage a resurgence of it because we cannot give up. If we give up, we're in trouble.
Mm, mm. I just want to come in here. There's two things I want to flesh out. So, from just observation, I've noticed that it almost seems that marriages that happened prior to, I don't know, the 1970s. Well, sorry, yeah. So before, in the 1970s, the 60s, the 50s, marriage seemed to be working, even though there was some maybe dysfunction somewhere. It seemed to be working. Like a couple stayed together. Now we see divorce happening left and right. And this is just from an outside view. I have no statistic to say divorce is on the rise or nothing like that. But from your perspective, being more senior, and Monty could chime into as well, from being elder, more older than I am. You know, why is it that it seems now that the family is just not working in terms of
Well,
marriage?
well, Colin, here's what. I don't have statistics just like you said. But there's such a thing called just social observable data. You know, you know a friend of a friend, and then you hear another friend of a friend that get divorced, and another one get divorced, and you in your own ignorance sometime meeting a friend and say, hey, how is husband or how is the wife, and then oh, we no longer together. You have no idea how many times I have stumbled upon such a scenario, right? So I think we could safely say divorces are on the rise, right? I think part of the problem is that you are living when you make reference to that of prior to what 70s or
70s,
80s
yeah.
or yeah, right? I think, and I don't want people to take this wrong. I think people had different priorities, right? They had totally different priorities. Somewhere along the line, I think we've been sold this idea of independence, and in selling this idea of independence, I don't know, I've heard it being said, this refrain so many times: living your best life, living your truth. You understand? Living your truth. And people make these statements as though some of them, to me, sometimes it makes absolutely no sense, because sometimes what they make reference to, truth is truth. You understand? So when you speak to that of when you're speaking to family, your truth, and some people want to have their own individuality. So when you speak to that of marriage, right? Whether you're religious or not, once you decide to enter into the institution of marriage, they tell you the two becomes one, right? And as like I say to people all the time, right? Never in my vows when I went up to the altar to get married, there was never anything in the vows talking about happiness and living your best life. It's about through sickness and in health, through better or worse. Um, and to put it plainly, in rough times and in bad times, it's about supporting each other, right? But there are people that wants to get into marriage now because it's glorified like it's a party, right? All they're studying is not the marriage, they're studying the wedding, right? They go on social media, they watch at movies that show you these caricatures of happily ever afters and all these different things, and people get fascinated by them, and they don't understand that it comes with work, right? But some of us, a lot of us, is not equipped to do the work, and it goes back to the family. If you're not properly equipped, right? If you're not properly socialized, right? If you do not understand that even with career is important, it's fuel to take you forward in this life, but it's not the be all and end all. Some people behave as though career is the most important thing in life. I would tell people, no, the most important thing in life is family, because family is continuity, right?
Right.
Without family is a unit of measure how we move forward in this life. It's our legacy. Without family, the name of Colin Campbell would ends. The name of There wouldn't be a Tyrone Jr. if you
There
decide to
is
come and just live your best life, and it's all
Right.
about you. You
Right.
understand? And once people understands that concept, right, and they take it seriously, marriages would have a better chance,
I
right?
want to get Tyrone to come in on that topic.
Yeah.
The institution of marriage.
Mm.
Yes. What is why is it that it seemed that it was working back then, and now it just seems that it's dysfunctional? That's just from my perspective. But you share.
Right.
so I agree with quite a lot of what Eddie said. The reality is that marriages, like relationships, like parenting, takes work, right? Eddie said many people are not equipped to do the work. They are equipped, they're not willing. A lot of us now, we don't have that sense of commitment. We don't have that sense of a shared vision of what where we going, what we're doing together as a couple, and then together as a family that we create together. So a lot of the times people jump into this big celebration of the wedding. Eddie's right.
Mhm.
When I speak at weddings, sometimes I say the wedding is for a day. The
Yeah,
marriage is meant to be forever. The work is on the marriage. Some of us put
yeah,
so much energy and work and money into the wedding that by the time we finish getting married, we tired with one another already. Because we fought over the wedding preparation so much. We
yeah,
spent so much money on the wedding for the purposes of impressing our guests and people and to show them that we
yeah.
better and we could do more. So you enter marriage broke. You're both working, but
Hmm.
you're not making a lot of money. Shortly after you get married, or in fact, many times even before couples get married, they have their first one or two children. So
Yeah,
then the marriage, the expense of the wedding, on top of all the expenses of life and all the realities that now face you as a couple, bringing up a family or caring for a family can become overwhelming. And
Mm.
nowadays, rather than stay together, hold hands and buckle down and fight, what a lot of us do is we run. The
yeah.
fight or flight, the
Hmm.
flight option kicks in faster than the fight option. Or if we fight not for the saving of the marriage, but we fight to see how quickly we could break it up. Who more
Yeah,
bad and who could leave first to make a
yeah,
statement.
yes.
So
Mm. Oh,
if we're to reverse all of this, there are some critical things that we need to think about. We need to think about how do we communicate as a couple before we become a couple,
right.
while we were a couple. How do we
Communication. All right.
communicate in planning to be a family? And then how do we communicate as a family, right?
Okay.
Then we have to learn about commitment. We have to know this thing is going to be hard work.
Hmm.
From the time we start to talk about building a family, we have to acknowledge it's going to be hard work, right? You have to think about conflicts. We are surrounded by conflicts in our lives. There are going to be conflicts that we self generate because we're two different people. Just because Eddie met Mrs. Eddie, 10 years ago, and he said, I like you, and she said, I like you back. That didn't suddenly make them twins,
Oh, you know,
right? Because
I
of
know
the
it's 10 years ago.
I didn't know. I
I,
Wait,
think
wait,
I've
wait,
looked.
wait, wait.
I,
That was
I
a
I,
think
guess.
I've looked. So if I
no,
was right,
I actually celebrated my 10th anniversary on Boxing Day.
Oh,
congratulations.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Yeah,
yeah,
but as a vote I
Congratulations.
make, but I'm
yeah.
just
You make a
saying.
good vote. You make a good
That
vote.
good vote, boy. That go for six.
I'm just saying that whenever it is, because the man say, "Hey, I like you," and the lady say, "I like you back." So let me do a thing, right?
Yeah,
That doesn't mean all you become twins and all your thoughts and expectations and so on are the same. You're still two different people with
yeah,
different experiences of the past, with different lived realities, with different expectations of the future. And now you have to try to find a way to make these two complete set of dynamics come together in this shared space that you've now decided to call we
yeah.
and go forward. And then you're complicated by having children. So when the children come along, they are part you, part her, but all them. So they have their
Hmm.
own personalities, right? Their own expectations, etc., etc. So it becomes harder the more persons are added to the mix. And then
Yep.
it have people outside there who always think they know how your life should be lived better than you. So they're
Hmm.
always giving you or her advice, right? They always have something to say. And then we begin to listen because sometimes we feel unfulfilled. So what the other person is saying sounds better than the reality we're living. So there are a lot of challenges that face the family unit. And if people are not emotionally strong, it's very hard to make a family work. And I'll tell you, it gets even more complicated when, let's say, your first marriage to your expectations didn't work based on what you thought you wanted of it. Some of us get divorced and we marry. I am in my second marriage and
Right.
I have children brought into my second marriage. So that
Yep.
also complicates the thing even more,
Yeah.
right? So there are a lot of realities that, fellas, you realize that nobody taught us none of this in school.
Yeah.
No,
Nobody
I
taught us how to navigate any of
the
this.
Yeah.
marriage. Nope,
So
At
we're
all.
nope.
whooping
At all.
straight. We just whooping and hoping for the best. But
You
as I
put it
said,
there, you
we could
get a
make it
six.
work. We have to
Mm-hmm.
learn to communicate openly and honestly with each other and early. We have to learn to commit and remember, constantly remember, why did we start this thing again? Why did we get into this? What did we want when we said let's do this? You know what I mean? Always going back to the foundation to remind yourself that even when you disagree and when you fall out, you probably have more that you want together than not. And sometimes it's only after the conflict grows because we didn't communicate, we forgot the commitment, the conflict creeps in, and then the conflict gets so big that it forces or pushes us apart, then we stop and say, if I didn't know.
Mm.
So we have
So
to
Yeah,
learn,
yeah.
a lot of this work has to be done. Start with the work together and continue to do it. You can't stop.
can't
Yes,
stop.
sir.
So
But
I've Eddie, just
but I
quick
just
join.
wanted to
Could you?
just quickly to say though, in what Tyrone is saying, I agree that 100%. But I think part of the problem is that we seem to have come to a place where we glorify, whether directly or indirectly, we glorify divorce, right? In the name of, okay, that if in the same vein of, okay, you can't lose yourself and you have to find your truth and whatever it is. So everybody is like, okay, this isn't working because guess what? I can't have my own way. We can't come to a compromise. So the easiest thing is to go through a divorce,
Yeah,
right?
I'm losing me. I'm losing my identity. I'm
Yeah,
stifled by this.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, which makes absolutely no sense because the vow it said the two becomes one. So how can you be moving forward in a marriage and worried about me? There's no, just like how they say there's no I in team. You know, no me in marriage. You might have a ma, but you know, no me in marriage.
Yeah.
And
But
at the
that's
end of
when
the
we
day,
forget about the commitment, Eddie.
yeah,
We forgot
Mm.
about the commitment to create together and move forward together. And
yeah.
therefore, we may not glorify divorce, but it's so easy to do it and we accept it so readily. And we have people who come in illegally 2 years into their marriage and they come with the person they plan to marry when they divorce the person they married to now. Imagine that.
But
You
that
know,
just
Oh,
you
goes
know.
to but that just goes to show you that even that itself speaks to that of infidelity, even in a marriage, because they always say infidelity starts mentally before it even gets physical. You understand? So it's just nobody want to do the hard work. They just think this thing is fairy tales. You understand? And I believe, and I remember, Colin, you remember us having that discussion with one of our previous guests, and I was saying that I just think that it's just too easy for us just to run and say, okay, we want a divorce because, okay, you have a difference. Nobody seems to want to go and seek counseling or to go and to seek some kind of a therapy because the fact remains that as human beings, we all, as you said earlier on, we come from different backgrounds with different experiences, with our own demons, and sometimes we own like a fractured past. You understand? So when we bring all this together, it requires serious work for it to work. You understand?
mhm.
Colin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and this is a lovely way to segue into another aspect of things. So, you have a situation where the marriage is just not working. The couple, they cannot see eye to eye, and the best decision is to s- split, have a divorce. But you have children in the mix. The issue of co-parenting now, because one of the things I've started to notice, whenever you have children, exhibiting deviant behaviors, when you look at the family structure, it's more so that it come from, well, you don't like the word dysfunctional families, saying, but it's almost fractured families, however you want to term it. They
I would
come
say
from these,
single.
yeah, they come from these homes that are fractured. So how do you, are we talking solutions here? How do we now enter into the situation of co-parenting, having mutual respect for each other, understanding that the child comes first, even in a case of divorce, right?
And even when it's not a case of divorce, but the family is still together but not functioning well.
Yeah,
Right.
Again, the reality is that we have to be committed. We have to be committed to the even if we realize that we cannot have the same commitment to each other that we started off with, sometimes the honest and best thing to do is to move apart, because a family that's toxic is not good, is not good. So it's sometimes better that families, the adults in the family, decide, you know what, we cannot make it anymore. We cannot make it. Our staying together is destructive for us. It is destructive for our children. So let's make an adult decision to separate, right? But let's remember now that we have children. Now, a lot of parents who come to legal aid are very surprised, and some of them get angry when I say to them, listen, you, mommy, you're sitting in front of me now. Daddy, you're sitting in front of me now. But I have to tell you all honestly that the client is not in the room because our client is a child, right? Our client is a child because of our mission to serve the best interests and serve and protect the best interests of the child is to ensure that whatever is the reality of the family structure within the child has to live, within which the child has to live, that the child has the benefit of a good relationship with both parents. That should be straightforward. That should be a given. And I think many families, many parents actually committed to that. But then feelings get in the way, frustrations get in the way, anger get in the way. You will not believe the amount of quarreling that happens in my office, because when people come in and for the first time, finally somebody gives them an opportunity to just say what you need to say, I will hush. You talk, let me hear your issue. Then the next person, and I have to say, no, 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 no. Here are the ground rules. You're not calling names. You're not calling each other names, but nobody, like, you're not calling each other, you know, the bad names that are coming. That's so and this and that. No, we're not doing that. You're going to be able to address the issue, but in a respectful way. They don't have anybody in this room called she. You don't have nobody in this room called he. Imagine people who lay together and have two, three, four children sitting 4 feet apart and refuse to acknowledge each other by name
Mm,
because
Yeah.
they vex. Because they vex with one another.
mm-hmm,
And the mother decides, let's say the father comes in, we have this a lot, where the father comes into legal aid seeking access. That is to get our support in asking the mother to please let him see the child or children. You call the mother. I don't let him see my child. He doesn't give the child nothing. Turn to the father.
mm.
The mother say, she let you see the child, but I don't give the child nothing. I don't give the child nothing because she doesn't let me see my child.
Oh
That
my
is not,
God.
nobody winning that. You
Yeah.
understand?
Nah.
So we have to
Oh,
start back. Okay, listen, Dad, you're not paying to see a child. Mom, he doesn't have to pay you to see the child. When you all made this child, you did this together as a partnership. Partnership broken. But the dad is entitled to have quality time with the child. And dad, the child is entitled to financial support to meet his or her material needs and emotional well being. So you have to both contribute something. But when you really get beyond the anger and the emotions that are being expressed, it really don't have much to do with the child as such, you know. They vex with one another. She leave before he was ready to let her leave, right? Or he leave and get somebody who she think making her look bad because the person younger, slimmer, nicer, whatever. And it's these feelings that get in the way. So the
mm-hmm,
co-parenting becomes much more difficult than it has to be, because people are trying to use children against each other, right?
mm,
I'm not letting the child come by you. And then even worse, when the partner starts seeing other people. You know how many people sit down in legal aid and say, I want my child go by him because he will make you woman touch my child here. Right? Or I ain't letting my child go by her because she man go want to put her hand on my child and I go want to go there and get real violent. Right? So we have to say, listen, if your former partner, the person with whom you're co-parenting now has moved on and you've moved on, the reality is the child is still both your child. So you have to find a way to put aside your personal feelings, put aside your
mm-hmm,
anger, and understand that everything you do for this child is going to make a difference in this child's life. Some children are angry because all they see is two angry parents. Some
mm,
children are
mm,
frustrated because they can't get either of their parents to listen. And then some children now get real smart and start manipulating their parents because the
mm-hmm,
parents are not talking. The child knows that. So the child now literally blackmailing daddy. If you give my money, I will tell you what mommy say when I was baptized. You
Oh
know,
my.
so parents have to
Wow.
understand you're no longer together. That's fine. You're adults. You made that decision. But neither of you can divorce the child. You have to put out, you
Ooh.
have to spend time, you have to give the child the benefit of, having two parents. But that is hard. And when it is a situation, gentlemen, where the parents may have been divorced or one of the partners died or whatever, and you now have a blended family, parents who meet other parents, and both sides of parents bring other children into the relationship that they're going into. So now you have two sets of children from two different set of parents, with one set of parents now trying to make all of this work. It can be difficult. But again, how do parents work to solve some of this? Communication. What are the rules that we set? The rules that you and your former husband or partner had for all your children, fine, but now you're in a different household. The rules that I have had for my children when they were growing up, your children have now joined this household. If I think those rules worked with my other children, I would like to apply the same rules again. So we have to agree. Parents have to be on the same page, right?
Hmm.
Commitment. We have to understand that what we're doing here, whether two of us brought these children into the world biologically or not, together, or we're trying to bring up other people's children, so to speak, we have to be committed to the upbringing of those children in a way that does not emotionally and physically harm those children. And conflict, we have to remember, conflicts will happen. The children don't like you because you're not their father, and they're going to tell you that every chance they get. Or you're not their mother. They're going to tell you that every chance they get, right? They will try to pit you against each other, especially when, Cullen, they live in your home for a weekend. They go and stay with the other with their father or their mother or their grandparents from the other parent side, and they're getting messages, they're getting old talk, they're hearing things, and they're young, they have to process all that. Sometimes they don't know how, and they come home and they blow up and it creates conflict. And it's the same three words I used earlier, right? Communication, commitment, and conflict in the context of marriage and
Hmm.
relationship, in the context of child rearing. And you will find it's the same three words that will be relevant in the context of addressing a lot of these social ills, because at the end of the
Oh.
day, co-parenting is real hard work. But
Mm.
if people are committed to the welfare and emotional stability of their children, they will put in the hard work. It's just that
Mm.
sometimes they also need some hand holding. We have parenting classes. The Ministry of Social Development have a whole national parenting program. So there are things out there that can help. Schools have PTAs. That's one of the functions of PTAs, to bring parents together with their children or in the interest of their children, and bringing people, professionals, to help them navigate some of the issues of bringing up and rearing and supporting their children.
Mm. Eddie, I sure you want to come in here because there's some things I just want to tie into this conversation. In a situation where you have a single parent, let's say predominantly female headed households, single parent headed households, you have a son, raising a son. One of the things that I've seen, and I've seen it in modern times now, you have young boys walking around with the latest cell phones, headphones, you name it, shoes, bags, and everything. But if you go at their home, there is no library in the house. It's just pure video games.
Yeah,
You know, but Eddie, I'm sure there are other qualms, not qualms, but what you say, what grinds your gears with regards to single parents, how are they raising children who later become dysfunctional?
yeah. Well, it's a lot to process, because listening to Tyrone speak here, I'm taking in a lot of this because he's coming from a place whereby he's interacting with a lot of these couples that he's seen that every day. And it's like I asked a question, and maybe it's not necessarily, and maybe you could speak to that, because I think we move forward in life a lot of times when they have separation of two parents separate, whether married or just common law, and we always have this situation whereby I don't think an evaluation is done whether or not who is the most appropriate parent. It's as though we in a society whereby a mother is always the default parent because I guess she, you know, the child came originated from her, right? Um, but I just want to put that out there. But on the top of that, even strengthen what Tyrone was saying, that it is not very easy, because although we talk about co-parenting, right? Um, to really sit down and say you can co-parent because of all of the emotions involved, all of the trauma involved, all of these things, and Tyrone listed it well. You understand? There's all these different things, but one of the things I wanted to piggyback on what you say is talking about communication, and I think it's a problem, and I think it's the biggest problem because very often people think because you standing on one side of the room and you just rambling on, and the next person standing on the next side of the room and they're rambling on, they think they're communicating. That is not communication. It's like, and I always refer to communication as a phone. It's like transmission and receiving.
Yeah, receiver. Yep.
You understand? If I pick up a phone call and I call you and I talking and I think you there on the other end and wherever it is, but you move the phone away from your ears wherever it is. I walk away from this situation thinking you hear all what I said. You understand? But we have come to a place where we have tuned out our partners, we have tuned out each other. So even if we standing in the same room, by and large, what we're doing is that we're talking past each other. We're waiting for opportunity to get our word in. So we're not even processing. We're hearing what they're saying just to respond, right? So when, for instance, you just as you put you're seeing people and they have games, they have this, they have that. No, instead of parenting, we playing tit for tat. I could give him more expensive gifts.
Right.
I could give him the latest sneakers and clothes that he wants. I want to be the nice parent. I want to be the the
The good
favorite
parent. Yep.
parent. You understand? Which does not do well for children at all because at the end of the day, part of parenting is for children to understand not everything in life that they want they can have. Sometimes certain things that they want, it's not a fact that you can't give it to them, but the fact remains is sometimes it's not appropriate at the time. They may be going to school, they're not doing well in their schoolwork. You can't keep going through life having children rewarding bad behavior, for instance. What message would you be sending to your child, right? In a household, the child is not doing well in school. The child is acting out. They do whatever it is. Yes, it might be because of what's going on, but yet you keep rewarding a child with gifts and whatever it is. Because guess what? You're trying to outdo she, or she trying to outdo he, whatever it is. So, and I wanted to say one thing about even even as you say with the blended families, and one of the things, and maybe I might be wrong on this, and maybe you all could speak to that. I always believe that even in the extreme cases, which I think it should take an extreme case whereby you decide to separate if you're married once you have children. If you don't have children, to me, by all means, the only thing that could be holding you all together might be financial attachments. But once you have children, I think you have to put in an extra shift, right? Just to see if you could make it work. But by and large, I always think that if a man, right, is being a father to his child, or vice versa, I always frown upon the fact that people go into new relationships and try to give their children a new father or a new mother. You understand? And I think sometimes that is where the conflict comes in because at the end of the day, as a father, I would tell Tom or whoever it is, you don't know the sacrifices I made, the days I stay hungry to make sure my child had. You can't come out and just know, and I'm just speaking as how the layman may see this. Right? And so in a way I'm playing devil's advocate. You can't just come out of nowhere, right? And sometimes don't even have the patience, right? to deal with some of the issues my son have or my daughter have, but you figure you could beat them up, whatever it is. You understand? So that's why I always, in a serious way, I'm very much against people trying to give parents to people to children that have parents that is in their life and playing an active role. Obviously, there would be the other spectrum where there are parents that not playing a pivotal role in their children's life, and in that case, obviously, But that's something it always kind of, as you say, grinds my gears. To be honest with
Gra- Okay. So, Tyrone,
Yeah.
Tyrone. No, just piggybacking off some of the things that Monty said. In a situation where you have, a divorce, you have children involved, you have co-parenting taking place. Let's say that is also becomes dysfunctional at a point in time. Now you have the mother being the sole parent, so to speak. What are some of the issues that really cause fathers to not be in their sons' lives or daughters' lives or children's
And the
lives?
children's lives. Well,
Yes, in the
sometimes
children's
the fact that the fathers may not have the necessary level of commitment that is required, and sometimes the fact that the father is being actively prevented by the mother through a whole
okay.
series of things. People putting words in she ears, people telling her the man ain't good, all of these things play roles. But then remember, if the parents communicated in the beginning about their commitment to their children, listen, we may not make it together as a couple, but as parents, we have to do everything we can do. And you can have a great parenting relationship even if you're not with each other. And you have
Okay.
to remember that it's your children that are important. Other people will say what they have to say, but they don't know your reality. They don't know
you.
what's going on with you and your children. So sometimes we have to
Yep.
stop listening to the blah, 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 blah that's happening around us and remember
Hmm.
that our commitment to these children is what's going to make a difference in these children's lives when they themselves become adults and hopefully eventually become parents. There's a lot for us to dissect. We talk about this business of communication, and Eddie gave a good example of what's not good communication. People talking at one another and people talking to one another. What about speaking with? What about speaking with? The only way you can have a conversation is when you're speaking with somebody, and that means A, you as the communicator, the transmitter, you get it through loud and clear, and the receiver is picking up, analyzing, and being able to respond clearly, and they come through loud and clear to you when they interact. That's speaking with. But sometimes we throw words at people.
Mhm.
We speak to
Mm.
people and they're not listening because they hear that all before, or they hear that tone of voice before, and it turns them off. So we have to be sensitive in our communication. We have to be honest about our commitment, and we have to be committed to dealing with conflicts. Because if we don't have these things working together, our
Hmm.
children are going to suffer for it. Our families suffer, and if we break apart as a family, and our children are being pulled hither, thither, and yon between this parent and grandparents and parents-in-law and all of that, step parents and so on, without understanding what's happening to me and why is this happening, because nobody thinks they're important enough to explain to them and hold their hand and navigate things with them is very difficult. Gentlemen, I am in the unique situation where I actually have had the privilege of being a dad to 8 children, right? Biologically, I only have 3 children,
Yeah.
but I have 8 children in my life. And the range is from 29 down to 11. You think it
Wow.
easy? It's not. Because A, it's
Wow.
different mothers, it's blended families. The
Different
challenges are
dynamics.
real. But
Hmm.
if the parent who I'm living with now, my wife and I are committed to doing the best that we can for all of the children, 4 of whom are adults, well, 5 of them are now adults, right? 3 of them are not. And they all, again, came from different realities, different circumstances, and all of that. The common denominator is me. And I'm not perfect and I'm not that good at it, but I try my best to let them know honestly that I can be flawed, that I can make mistakes, that I can get it wrong sometimes. But at the end of the day, I have your best interest at heart. Parents just need
So
to
Mm.
communicate that.
yeah, I want to just say one more thing as he just made that point there, because we're talking about people always rah and advice, and because part of this discussion is about finding solutions, I think it remains for me to really bring this to the fore that I find very often, right? And I don't want to sound, because people could always say, okay, you're being sexist, but I think just biology, how men and women are different in that regard, right? But it is, and maybe I should say it's my experience.
Yeah.
Another instance of social observable data, right? That very often people that are married, and I would like to specifically say married women, right, for some reason always seem to seek counsel from single women or women that are not in any committed relationship, right? And I never understand this concept whereby if you don't have a track record of a successful relationship, why is this the person you're going to for advice, right? You ever hear the old saying, people say misery like company? I grew up hearing that all the time. And in the context of solutions, I think too often we as a people, right? We have this stigma towards maybe we have to find a way to get out of our own way, and maybe be more open to things like therapy, and we ain't going by
Counseling?
to get counseling, because we could handle that ourselves, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think, and the way I look at it when I speak to that of counseling and therapy and these things like that, I just would tell people is that just think about it. Think about a situation in your life, right? That it has been bothering you to your core. You've been struggling in it, whether it's for weeks, months, and you just think about the situation, that scenario, when you finally got somebody to talk to, how it made you feel. Sometimes it could be just a good friend. I'm not saying it's always good to go and let it go, but I'm just saying, think about how it made you feel. Sometimes just somebody to go and to release and say, listen, this is what I'm going through. Sometimes when you have I have seen situations like that, right? That when people like that start talking, they can't stop. You know, Colin, I spoke to you on this program earlier about a father, right? That he's a single father that was left, right? And he has two girls. And this man talking to me, and he was like, "Say, do you think you easy boy? You go, you're doing all for it, and you go to a health, you go to the doctor with your child, and to hear a health professional would tell your daughter in front of you, be careful, don't let daddy touch you there and this kind of thing, you know." And sometimes, so I'm saying all this to say, sometimes because I'm looking at solutions here now, maybe we have to do some sensitization and to make getting therapy and counseling a more something that is more acceptable to our society, because by and large I think it's not we're not very accepting of these things. And
Right.
sometimes we tend to always want to go and say, um go and tell we girlfriend, or go and tell we partner, he this, he that, he the other. And mine, and I'll be honest with you, 9 times out of 10, they ain't seeing what they do. You understand? So that is what
Hmm.
I'm saying. So the feedback they're getting is always skewed. It's never, you know, and you have to
Right.
always think about the bias of it too. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because I believe part of this discussion is always about solutions. Because without solutions, as I say, I've been seeing too often that some of these things that we've been fighting for so long, I've seen no evidence that it's getting better. I think it's getting worse. So I think we need to do some kind of correction somewhere along the line, a change in course.
And
Right.
I certainly agree. But Mr. Tyrone, you want to just jump in? Just
Well, I work in an organization called Legal Aid and Counseling Clinics. I have to make a plug for counseling. Eddie, you're right.
Exactly.
First, of course, there are those people who will always go to their friends. Let's face it. When
Yeah.
something bothers us as men, the first person we turn to talk to is a man, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not a professional man who can give us high level professional advice, but we turn to a man who we know would listen to us. Women do the same. And that is fine. There is a place for informal counseling or listening sharing because sometimes it's just a matter of getting something off your chest.
Yeah.
Counseling, of course, is a more formalized thing. And counseling, although it's been happening forever, there are still stigmas attached to counseling in Grenada because the concept that many people in Grenada have as counseling is for mad people.
It's
If you go in and
crazy.
get
Yeah.
counseling, you're
Yeah.
crazy. Something
Yeah.
do you,
Yeah.
something bad wrong with your head. And that's not the reality. The reality is that a counselor really is just somebody who is there as a facilitator to help you talk through what you're dealing with and come to a place where you feel comfortable that you have found a way of dealing with it, a solution, if you will. But we have a lot of advisors, on the other hand, people who feel they know everything about everything. No matter what your problem is, they know somebody who had that problem before, and they could tell you what they tell that person, and they go work. And again, that also is not the reality. So we need to actively encourage counseling and therapy. We do that; it's free at our agency because, again, for a lot of people, one of the barriers to seeking professional help is what they perceive to be the high cost. Now, at Legal Aid and
Yeah.
Counseling
Yeah.
Clinic, there's no cost for counseling. If you come in with an issue, depending on the issue on day one, you may be asked to pay a $50 consultation, but thereafter there is no other charge. And of course, there are other professional entities or there are people who have offices and so on who counsel in a private capacity, and there's a cost to that. But I can tell you that anybody who needs counseling in Grenada can get it and can get it free, or if they don't feel they can go to the place, let's say like Legal Aid, where it is free because of whatever reason, and they have the means to seek it, privately, they can pay for that. Because a lot of times, the things that prevent us from seeking the support we need is our perception of poverty. We feel we can't afford that. Some of us have a mentality of poverty where we always tell ourselves, I can't pay that. I can't afford that. You want a broke smell? I can't handle that because we have misplaced priorities in terms of what is important, right?
Mm.
Poverty is a real thing. I'm not at all saying it isn't. Poverty is a real issue. It's an issue that we as a country grapple with daily. But a lot of us, our situation is not based in poverty so much, meaning the absence of necessary resources to meet our needs. Our situation is based on our priorities, the things that we choose to see as important, that we're willing to spend money on. Uh, you mentioned earlier about a lot of parents who they buy the devices for their children.
No
These
library
devices are no library, right?
in the home.
These devices are almost meant to be surrogate parents.
Yeah.
If I give
Yes.
you a phone and they could get online and paying for the internet, leave me alone, now, man. Go online and do something else. You
Keep them
know,
quiet. Yeah.
exactly as
Yeah.
opposed to making the time. I see it all the time, and it's interesting that in our culture we have a culture of force raping children to talk. Eddie, you're a parent. I don't know if you're a parent, Cullen, and I'm
Not
guilty of
yet.
it as a parent. And we see it. Somebody has a child, a young child, a few months old. The child can't talk yet, but every time the child make the mouth up, what you say, Dudu? Oh God, she tried to say something. Tell us, da da da. We kind of push the children to talk long before they're ready. And as
Mhm.
soon as those children start to talk, we spend the next 15 to 18 years telling them to hush.
So, so,
To hush.
Right?
yep. Yep.
Every little, oh God, hush now, you could talk, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right? And
Yep.
Oh
by
boy.
doing that, we discourage our children from communicating. We do not encourage their communication skills to grow and develop so that when
That's
they're
right.
in school and they know the answer to the question, but they're afraid to say it because mommy always telling them hush, they think the teacher go tell them hush. They're most probably more brilliant than the child who always putting up their hand. But
Hmm.
they're afraid to put up their hand because they don't have a history of that. They're not comfortable with that. So what happens? The loudmouth gets in front of the class, which is what often happens in our society. The man who make the person who make the most noise, we promote them, right? But the ones who actually have something of substance to say often don't get to say it, either because they're timid and they're afraid to come into the limelight, or even if they try to come into the limelight, we're going to ignore them anyway. So that's one of
Yeah.
the
Mm.
realities, right? That's one of the realities. If
Mm.
we realize that buying all the nice and fancy things that the children have, only to get them to talk up, to tell you what the other parent doing, or to tell you what, to make you feel better about yourself, you're never going to stop spending money, because children learn to become takers, right? They manipulate, they always want, they always want, they always want, and they become adults who are doing the same thing, and then they get into destructive behaviors because of the same thing. And then they think they're poor, meaning poverty stricken, if they're not able to afford some overrated material thing that they could actually survive very well without. But that's the kind of thing that have grown to importance in their mind. I was told that one of the poorest parishes, well, we know by from statistics what is supposed to be the poorest parish in the country. I live in that parish
Yeah.
now.
It
And
is.
the amount of natural resources that are available in that
Yes.
parish. But
Yeah.
Yes.
you know why people think they're poor? Because they
Tell
can't
me,
jump on the bus and go and buy KFC anytime they want,
KFC. Yeah.
right? They can't
I
come
wouldn't
down
say
in
that.
town and buy Subway anytime they want. So they
Yeah.
figure
Yeah.
you're poor, but you have all these natural resources
Natural
around
resources.
you that
Yeah.
make you fantastically rich.
Yeah.
But your priorities are messed up.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I should say the name of the parish. Maybe I shouldn't. But
But
I
yeah,
actually know
they've
the
been seeing it.
community.
They've been seeing it for the longest while. So,
But let's not say.
yeah.
The point is that the
Yeah. Yeah.
point is that we do
Yes.
have
Yes.
pockets of poverty everywhere in
Yeah.
this country.
Of course.
Right.
Obviously, we have communities that are not doing as well as other communities, etc., etc. But in reality, a lot of us are in a position to provide for all the needs of our family and to also extend a helping hand to other families. But we
Mm.
want to go after certain materialistic things that speaks to our priorities. Parents who
Oh.
feel that it is okay for the graduation. I know parents who a child go to school for 5 years
Hmm.
and wear two single pants for the whole 5 years and
Yeah.
two pair of shoes. And then the parents buy brand new shoe, brand new pants, brand new shirt for graduation.
Yeah.
Right? That's mixed priorities,
Yes.
right? When
Mm.
is the graduation?
Mm.
Now, they spend a fantastic amount of money on the gong and all the titivation, as old people used to say, that goes into making them look their best for graduation. And then
Because that time, because that
when
time
it's
we
time to pay
reflecting
the
on them, huh?
800, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And when it's time to pay the $810 for college registration, you say,
For
we don't
college,
have that,
they don't have it. They
what
don't have it.
government do it, why government can pay it for us, So again, it's about priorities. Poverty is a real thing, gentlemen. I do not want it to
Hmm.
be said that I said it isn't. It's a real thing. But for a lot of Grenadian families and whether single parent, whatever construct the family has, for a lot of families and a lot of children in these families are seeing a skewed sense of what is important. They value the wrong things because the emphasis is based on acquisition of certain things that are not of necessarily of high value, but they cost a
Hmm.
lot of money. So when we talk
Mm.
about how do we solve the issue of poverty, we're never going to solve the issue of poverty, but we can help people to rise to a place where their families can be much more comfortable if we help them to use the resources that they have in a more intelligent way that is based on the priorities of the family rather than the glamour and the glitter and what makes people think highly of you. The worst
Hmm.
poverty to have is a poverty of the mind when you don't feel bad,
Mind.
when you don't feel great about yourself,
Mind.
when you
You
don't feel
know,
good about yourself.
I want to come in here because I want to segue, and you did it very elegantly in your statement there. But there's a particular situation that I've experienced. It's two. I'll give the first experience. I was at no, I shouldn't probably say where I was because it's easy to identify who I'm talking about. All
I
right,
was
Yeah.
so I was at
somewhere.
a certain yeah,
I
yeah,
was
I
somewhere.
was at a certain institution,
Right.
and there's a particular person. I won't say what gender, but there was a particular person that said to me that they were selling at that particular institution for over, I think, 25 or close to 30 years. And they have seen the development of that institution and it has changed. And it was once this way, now it has moved and become better and so forth and so on.
Right.
And I'm looking at her, that institution has transformed. But I'm looking at her and her situation hasn't transformed. Oh, sorry. Oh, My
Well, it
apologies.
doesn't matter. It's how
Okay.
it's
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
All
the
right. But
situation, right? Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, so the building is transformed, but that person's situation has not transformed because they're still doing the same exact thing that it was doing 30 something years ago. Now, to my next point, I was at a barber shop and a particular foreigner came in and he would have conversations with the owner of the barber shop. And, the conversation was sparked up that he was saying he didn't understand what our foreparents was doing. And that foreign, I'm like, and I'm listening, and he was saying, well, when he first came to Grenada, he thought that he would have to be renting from Grenadians for the rest of his life. No, Grenadians are renting from him. So I'm bringing all of this into this conversation to speak about that mental poverty that you're referring to. The mere fact that we feel we don't even know that we deserve better, it seems. You know, what is causing that, and how can we get people from where they are to where we need them to be?
Right. To a large extent, perception and prioritization. Do you know why our agricultural sector is failing?
Tell me.
I'm asking you, and
Perception.
I'll give you what
Oh,
I think is one
I
of the
think it's because of
answers.
perception.
But I'll
Perception.
give you one. I'll give you what I think is one of the answers,
Yeah.
because
tell
I
me.
hear it all the time. Oh, government is not investing enough in agriculture. Government is not doing enough for agriculture. But if you look at the traditional owners, not the plantations and so on,
Right.
but a lot of Grenadian farmers who own good large tracts of land and worked that land hard in the 60s and 70s and maybe even as recently as the 80s. What did they all desire most? Are working
Hmm.
hard. I hear fathers and
Hmm.
mothers say that.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
Yeah.
working hard so we children don't have to
Then
do
don't have to
it.
do
Children
that.
don't have to work hard.
So we send our children away
Yeah.
to become doctors and lawyers.
Oh
Nothing wrong
yes.
with those professions. But the point is, those children don't feel they have a connection to the land because all they hear their parents complaining about, despite how well the land did for them because it allowed them to get top notch education and so on. Boy, I don't want you to do this hard work. I don't want you to end up like me. As if there is a shame
Yeah.
in being a farmer who is feeding a country,
Mm-hmm.
as if there is embarrassment as a result of that. So these children go away, they get their education and so on, and they come back, and their acreage 10, 20, 30, 40 acres of land in one family's name that is lying fallow. Because nobody in the family has an interest in farming it because the old generation that farmed it to the point where it was able to educate all their children have said to their children, I never want to see you in that land. Then what happens? Relation
Oh,
to the foreigner color. The foreigner comes in, 40 nice acres of land in a hill somewhere that everybody in Grenada say they don't want to go up on no hill and live. That too far. The foreigner buys it, pennies on the dollar, right? Puts in
hmm.
a couple roads and then sells it. One of the best piece of residential areas in this country right now was sold in 1969 for 2 cents a square foot. And
Ah.
today, you cannot get a plot of land in there for less than 30 US dollars a square foot. And you're told
Oh.
that in order to buy that land, you have to buy a minimum of 100,000 US dollars worth of land, right?
Ah.
And that piece of land was owned by two foreigners, bought by two foreigners because it was owned by the state. So I'm just saying, we have devalued some of the most valuable things in our lives. So what has become important is not what we grew ourselves, not what we were able to rear and plant and water and reap and sell. That's not what is valuable anymore. What's valuable now is what we can order on Amazon, what we can buy and bring in, because that makes a bigger statement. So a lot of our agricultural lands have gone fallow. Government could obviously do more to encourage the agricultural sector, but then who is going to do the farming? Because a lot of those formerly very productive farmland that still exists, they don't want to sell it for farmlands. They want to sell it to developers. The
Develop.
owners are going
Oh
to
my.
hold on to it until somebody offers them a foreign currency, and that person, all they're going to do is buy it, pennies on the dollar, put in some roads, and sell it as a residential development, and we ourselves go in and take out $1 million loans to
Mhm.
buy 2 and 3 bedroom houses in those developments. That's the skewing of of what's important,
And
right?
then we're
And
talking about
Mm.
food security, right?
right, exactly. And then we talk
Yeah,
about food security,
yeah.
and when you go to certain establishments in Grenada, the orange, the mango, the apple, the
Everything
pepper, the
imported.
cucumber, the lettuce, everything is imported
Yes.
by the container,
Mm.
right? So I'm just saying that there is poverty and then there is poverty, you know?
Yeah.
And for a lot of
More
us, a
than
lot
good.
of our children who grow up and feel if the shoes I'm going to school with is not worth more than 100 US dollars, it's not a good shoe. When I went to primary school, when I got my first shoe, was a dog muzzle. And I was so happy because to me, for all the years before that, I went without shoe.
Color
Right?
know what that is?
Wow.
Had nothing
Yeah.
to
Oh
do with the
yeah.
quality of education I got. I just didn't have shoe. It wasn't a thing to look around and see who had and do it because most of us didn't have. It didn't matter,
Yeah.
right?
Was a rubber dinghy, right? That's what we call a rubber dinghy.
A dog muzzle, yeah. Now they
Dog
have the
Yeah,
muzzle.
the
one
rubber
without.
dinghy. Yeah, that's what
I
we used to
know.
call it.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah, it
you're
was a
from a
rubber.
later generation.
Yeah, I'm a later generation,
I
so we used to call
remember.
it the rubber dinghy.
I know about the dog muzzle, and we had gym boots and kegs.
But no,
But
that was rich people thing.
kegs is
What?
now rich people. That is now rich people thing, right? Even
It
that's
started
not
off
even.
with that dog muzzle, and as you get older, it's like
Yeah.
when you're
Uh-huh.
going to primary school, right?
Yeah.
And I know when people like us now would have these conversations, young children say, "Well, you want us to go back there? No, we don't want you to go back there. We want you to appreciate where we came from. We want you
That's
to
right.
appreciate that despite what was supposed to be the hardship of our time, we made it. We got up in the
Mm.
morning and we went and cut vine for the rabbit and tie out the goat and the sheep, right? And come back and feed the rabbit and the fowls in the yard, and then you went to school. Primary school started at 8 o'clock and finished at 3 o'clock. And when you came home, you then went and pick up your animals, bring in your animals, as you say, right? So it wasn't that things were great, but they were not so terrible. And I'm never going to wish that my children have to go back and live those realities necessarily, but I would like them to appreciate it because if you can appreciate where you came from and the sacrifices that were made and the value of things, you're better positioned for your own adulthood because then your children don't run circles around you and throw down themselves in tongue and bawl because you don't want to buy them a certain type of bag when they're
Mm.
2 years old. Because if you're going to give in when they cry at 2 to what they want in the store, when they're 12, you're going to give in.
Of
And
course.
sometimes
Mm.
it's not the look at the bag, it's the books in it, and not just the book, but what's in the book if you're going to take the time to read it and learn and get an education. So, gentlemen, there's a lot of stuff that we need to unpack.
Yeah.
And we just want, from my point of view, from my workspace, my professional hat, from my workspace, I just wish, parents could understand that there is a lot of challenges you're going to face in the parenting journey, but there are a lot of resources available out there to help, right? Because at the end, we have we have life, strength, health, we have energies, you have good intentions, and you have support. You can make it,
To make it.
but it is not
As we looked, Mhm.
easy.
Right, and as we looked at some of the conversation, Eddie, sure you want to chime in on what was said, regarding the issue of poverty and mental poverty
Yeah.
as well.
Well, Tyrone has been hitting the nail on the head so precisely.
Yes, hard boy. Yeah, boy, hitting it
He
hard, eh?
he he ain't even much for me to say, but I just
Mm.
have to endorse a lot of what he has been saying because too often you've been hearing this refrain that we are not our parents' generation, and we speak it in this such derogatory way as though we looking down on our parents and the sacrifices that they made. And that's what it's upsetting because they don't understand today that it's not a matter. Parents made those decisions and made those sacrifices in spite of all the hardship, right? because they understood what was important, right? Is making sure they put food on the table and knowledge in it, and making sure that we raise people that could become valuable members of society. Now these days we don't, it's like we have parents that have no shame. And I have no problems with saying that, right? There are parents now that have absolutely no shame whatsoever, right? Whether or not they raise children that becomes menaces to society, right? Could be going and terrorize whoever it is. As a parent, you think that that could have been heard of back in the day? You as a parent should be embarrassed, depending on the things that your children did, right? And it goes back to that's why I said the community raised the children because the community looked out for the children because they understood that when they corrected a child, right, they know John or Mary coming down the road with a cutlass in front of their house or showing up in school to cuss a teacher and tell them all kind of things they don't know about them, or show up like some of these viral videos we were seeing parents showing up and boxing children and beating up children. And this is a serious deficiency of the brain. For you have to ask yourself, but it goes back to what I've been saying from beginning. If that is what how they were nurtured, that is what in turn they pass on to their offspring. So the cycle continues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I always like to make reference to the fact that there's always this, and I'll show you me I've heard about it, where this young lady asks someone, I say, why every time you just boil ham, you always just cut a ham wherever it is. She been just doing this for that's she passed it on to her daughter. When she had a boil a ham, she cut the ham in two. Never understood why, you understand? But she learned it from her mother. It turned out the original reason why that was the case was because the person didn't have a big enough pot. So they had to cut it. Well, guess what? If we do not equip our children with the right information and speak to them, not just pass on information and say, do as I do, you know, sometimes we don't give our children enough credit. We get on as though they know, we treating them as little puppets or as though little dolls or whatever the case may be. I have a 2-year old and I speak to him. I use words because at the end of the day, that's is how he would learn to speak. You understand? But we still have this society whereby, yes, and as whereby we want to keep things from the children. We want to. Tyrone, I just still get problems. The fact that we as a people don't still speak fluent patois. You understand? Because at the end of the day, that is somewhere along the line we found that it was appropriate to use it as a language to hide from our children. You
Hide from
understand?
our children, exactly.
You know,
Mm.
so that they don't know what we're speaking of. You know, when you go in other when you go to other countries, people still speaking fluent patois. You understand? And that is part of our heritage. And until to me we don't understand, we understand. And in this age of independence and 50 years, and we still want to go further, I think it's so important for us to be so diverse in what we teach our children and how we teach our children, because without doing that, you know, we're going to continue down this road of either division, either bacchanal, either everybody wants to be the most popular, you know. But I'll be one to say, okay, I don't disagree that there are people that get bullied and whatever it is. But guess what? There's certain concept of bullying I would never understand, and I'm just using that as an example, right? That how we could raise children, right? That can come to a place whereby somebody on the next side of the world could bully them on social media, that could want to commit suicide. You ask yourself, what is the substance we are passing on to our children? You know, I went to school. He had guys that was always bigger than me and figured they could push you around. I figure it may, at the end of the day, I ain't saying it is right, but at the end of the day, it made it so it gave you the ability to solve issues, get to solve problems, to get around certain issues, But I just think that we just, as parents, boy, we just come to a fast. It's like the fast food mentality. Everything is easy, you know.
Easy.
As I say, we give them a device just to keep them quiet. You understand? And when they harness all the negatives that, because watch now, it's not that sometimes I'm trying to go and look for the negatives, the negatives come into them, you know.
True. True.
So
So,
it's a lot, and I really hope that we could see a different trajectory as we go forward, but it's a lot, and I think so. We have to continue having this conversation so that it's more solution based. We could talk about the ills, but always looking at the solutions as we move forward. And I believe in, yes, social programs are great, but we need to think of policy that start correcting course from inception, from the beginning. As you will say, you have to bend the tree while it is young. Most of the times, we have programs that by the time they get to us and they get access to these programs, a lot of people set in their ways. You understand? It's more difficult to get these people and to get them to change course. So, as I said, that is just my perspective on that.
okay. So, Tyro, just giving you an opportunity to give your closing comments regarding the conversation thus far. Um, no, we're at a time now where we're celebrating, yes, our 50th anniversary of independence. What should be our focus going forward, and how do we achieve it? Just to sum up this conversation in a few sentences.
Well, my few sentences will be our focus should be on building strong, resilient families. The family is the backbone of the society. Is a nursery. If we are able to nurture and help grow children who are able to communicate, who are able to commit to things, who are able to avoid conflict or manage conflict in an effective way in their lives, and therefore respond to challenges of life as they come, we will be building a society that is strong and resilient, that is able to survive no matter what. 50 is plenty, but 50 is half of something. So we have a good ways
Yeah,
to go still. Right. So, gentlemen, I enjoyed this conversation. I think we should continue this conversation, a conversation along this line. I am giving you an open invitation to reach out to me at any time, and also for us to bring other fathers into the mix. So this conversation is richer by virtue of varied voices.
yeah,
And
yeah.
That's
so I
right.
look forward to being with you again sometime in the near future. And I wish you the best, and to all of our fellow Grenadians, Grenadian citizens from the islands of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, whether you're currently on these islands or wherever you are in the diaspora. Happy 50th. God bless us as a nation. God bless you and your family. And please take care of each other. Good night.
All right.
Um,
Well said. Yep, Monty, you just
well,
have something quick to say?
yeah. So I just want to end first and foremost by saying, I can't say Mr. Buckman Tyrone again. Thanks a million for coming on and being a part of this important discussion. And we definitely will take you up on the offer um, to continue this discussion. As I told you in the back end, there's some plans we have to have some in-person activities that we could even continue this conversation, right? And in a more general way, I just want to say again in closing, because we won't be able to say this again before Independence Day. Happy Independence to everybody. Um, I really think as a people, we have to work towards, you know, you know, just I believe if we don't understand that we could only move forward if we work together, that means generally we ain't going anywhere. You understand? Because you could have all you could have all the knowledge, you could have all the degrees, whatever. All you would do is just have a bunch of qualified people doing absolutely nothing, because if nobody could agree to anything, right? And part of this journey is about being able to work together for common good. Whether it's us speaking about working together as fathers, as parents, to make sure that we bring forward young people into the society and keep repopulating the society with valuable members of society, people that would contribute, right? And create longevity for the society. We as a people, even the adults today, we have to continue to do our part. Because if we don't do our part, remember, we are the ones setting the example, and the same youths that we always like to condemn, they watching. So
That's right.
thanks again, and I look forward to doing this again, Colin. Thanks again to you.
It's a
Always a
pleasure.
great job. Yeah.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Mr.
Yes.
Tyrone.
Yeah.
Take
Yeah.
care. All right, to our listening and viewing public, we would like to thank you for tuning in to another episode of A Father Knows Best. Please stay tuned as we continue to have more dynamic conversations on issues that really matter, and it's all in a bid to help us move forward as a people and as a country. Peace and blessings to all. Thank you so much. Take care.